SNY.TV. We're going to be talking Knicks, upcoming schedule, playoffs, the works for a little bit here. And we got two great guests. One, as Jerry Ferrara. You might know him as Turtle. You might know him in many different roles that he has played on screen. We're lucky enough to have him on our screen. Jerry Ferrara, big-time Knick fan. We also have JJ Redick, the Ringer, New York podcast, SNY. He's all over the place. You probably know him as well. We are very excited to get going and talk Knicks here. And guys, let's start out with the man of the hour, right? Immanuel Quickley, 40 points last night. JJ, you already said you want the sunglasses. So what do you think of his look on the court, off the court? You tell me.
Incredible, Ian. First of all, I wish I had JJ Redick's jump shot and his bank account.
Did I call you JJ Redick?
Yeah, I liked it, though. But, I mean, you know what, though, in all seriousness, considering that he lives around the corner from me in Brooklyn, it's only apropos. Man. So you're giving me those superpowers right out of the gate, so I appreciate it. That's number one. Number two,
Jastremski.
As far as Immanuel Quickley, fellas, he has been spectacular for the Knicks. You know, you think about young players that you want to see take the next step. He's gotten playing time. He's made the most of his opportunity. And I'm kind of now at a point, guys, with Immanuel Quickley, where at the end of these games, he has to be on the floor. That's all there is to it. You know, we spend a lot of time talking about, who starts games? Should Immanuel Quickley be a starter? I don't care. When Jalen Brunson is back, that's all well and good. He's the best player on the team. He's the most valuable player on the team. But when you're talking about a closing five for the New York Knicks that you want at the end of these games, Quickley is a part of it. He's had a fantastic season, and I'm all in. He's a keeper. He's a bona fide stud, and he deserves all the praise and accolades that's coming his way. So, yeah, he could rock those sunglasses after a game like that. Absolutely.
Jerry, would he have gotten a cameo in Entourage? I know you guys had a lot of athletes back in the day. You think you guys could have snuck him in?
I think he officially reached Entourage cameo stature. Julius did it 2 years ago. Brunson pretty much from game 10. And I think now our executive producer will be reaching out to IQ's agent saying, hey, you're going to be in LA in the offseason. And we'd definitely be, and it'd probably be my character who would be shooting that cameo. Yeah, so, yeah, and JJ's right. I mean, he's been magnificent this year. I love the career high. I love the 40 points. I just get excited with how he affects the game in other ways besides just scoring, with his passing, with his defense, and just his energy. Overall, his energy is a difference maker. And I love that he annoys Nets fans, Celtics fans, dancing around. I just love it. I love that he annoys people. Bring it. We need that energy.
The thing that I thought was interesting was last night he was talking about when he was on the free throw line to go from 38 to then 39 and 40. His teammates wanted him to get 40. The crowd wanted it. He wanted it. And he said that was probably one of the most nervous times he's had at the free throw line. Even though the Knicks were up so much, he said he started thinking about just what the moment meant, started thinking about all he had done to get there, workouts over the summer, everything really over the spectrum of his basketball career. And it was just cool to hear that insight from Immanuel. Every time you speak to him, it just gives you great insight. He seems like a really solid person. A person that an organization, I think, should invest in, and that's where I go because restricted free agency 2 summers from now, eligible for an extension this summer with the Knicks. And to me, it's a no-brainer to extend him, to get him under contract for as long as you can because he has made the jump that you want to see young players make. Now, I'm sure that he's going to want to not take advantage, but get paid what he's worth. And, get a nice contract. Is there a number and length of a deal for the Knicks and Quickley's camp that makes sense? We'll find out this offseason. But if I'm New York, I'm paying premium dollar to bring IQ back, keep him in the Garden for a long time to come. And Mr. Jastremski, is there a scenario, let's say we're talking about trading for stars and Quickley is in a deal. What's the player coming back where you as a Knicks fan say, all right, I could, sorry, Immanuel, I love you, but I understand this deal because who we have coming in. Because I'm sure Knicks fans want him back in a bad way.
Well, I want him back in a bad way. I mean, listen, he has put the time in. He has improved his game. Those guys you want to grow with. Listen, I'm not delusional. If you tell me one of the top 15 or 20 players in the league are coming back and Immanuel Quickley is going elsewhere, then yeah, I'm going to be willing to tango. But I mean, you talk about leverage, right, Ian? And the idea that Immanuel Quickley is developing quite the contract for him down the road that's going to really set up nicely after the season he's had. The Knicks might have to up the ante a little bit more if we're talking about a potential award that might be coming his way at the end of the year. I know if I were Immanuel Quickley's agent, fellas, I would like the idea of being able to use that award in my contract negotiations to say, okay, I'm going to get this much more out of the Knicks because of the season you had. And I want to throw this comparison at you two guys. I see a lot of Lou Williams in Immanuel Quickley's game. A lot of skip to my Lou. You know, like he's not really a point guard. He's kind of like that perfect combo guard. I think he's perfect coming off the bench. He gives you instant energy, but at the end of the games, if you have a winning team, he's probably a part of your N5. You see a little of that, Ian and Jerry? Lou Williams, Immanuel Quickley?
Certainly Lou will. And I think, the interesting thing is he did an article with Yahoo recently where he said, he doesn't want to be just a microwave scorer off the bench. He sees himself as a starter eventually. So, yeah, the Lou Williams comparison fits, but he's looking to start. Jerry, do you see Lou Williams? Do you see anybody else when you look at Quickley?
You know what? I saw Lou Williams, and I love Lou Williams, one of my favorite players to watch, meaning I think we all saw the version of Quickley that comes off the bench and, like you said, is a microwave scorer. The thing that separates it to me and why I'm so scared of losing him is it really is the perimeter defense for me. He is all over the place, and that energy. Lou Williams may have been probably a better scorer, but who knows? Quickley's so young, he may develop into a Lou Williams scorer. Lou Williams could get you 40 on multiple nights sometimes. I just think with his defense, that's what scares me because I know him and Brunson can coincide. We've seen it in the fourth quarter. To JJ's point, he needs to be on the court to close out these games. Is he going to want to be a starter? I mean, it's well within his right. I think he's earning a starting job somewhere. I just hope that the Knicks could make some moves in the playoffs so everyone could just buy in on where this team is going. And I think that'll be the key also. Pay the man and show, like we always talk about Knicks getting free agents. Well, he's a restricted free agent. This is a guy we'd absolutely try to sign in the offseason if he wasn't on our team. So right. Make it happen. Make it happen.
Right. So also talking about the playoffs, Julius Randle, we know he led the team to the playoffs in 2021. And then, had a tough series against Atlanta. He's going to be a key for the Knicks in whatever their first-round series is coming up here. It looks like it's going to be Cleveland. We'll see. With Randle, what you've seen this season, what you've seen recently, and I don't make it a big deal out of what happened in Orlando. We asked him about it. He talked a little bit about it. I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think it has impacted the team at all. But just based on everything you've seen lately, JJ, how do you feel about Randle going into this postseason?
So I'm not going to make a big deal about Thursday because I think he's cool with his teammates. I think there's an understanding. I think Tom Thibodeau, who's done a fabulous job all year, though, fellas, he's got to rein this in because it's now problematic from a standpoint of if I'm an opponent and I'm going up against the Knicks in a playoff series, I know I can get under the skin of Julius Randle if I body him a little bit, if he's not getting the calls, that he's going to act up, that he's going to start throwing his hands in the air. And I don't think it's a coincidence that a lot of these Julius Randle meltdowns, we saw it against the Clippers when they're on the West Coast. We saw it on Thursday against Orlando. It's when Jalen Brunson is not in the lineup and more of the onus is on Julius Randle, it seems like he gets that much more frustrated. This is where Thibodeau's got to say, enough is enough. Julius, you got to cut the nonsense, buddy. You can't let the opponent and the officials and the way the game is going get under your skin to the point where it's impacting your game. I know if I'm the Cleveland Cavaliers or I'm the Philadelphia 76ers, hey, if I coach that team, I'm telling my guys, get under this guy's skin because it's a problem. It is a problem, and it's something that I think come playoff time, we're going to see. You're going to see maybe a guy like Mobley, or you're going to see maybe it's Embiid and whoever on Philadelphia. Try to get under Julius to the point where he's throwing his hands in the air. He's taking ill-advised shots. He's maybe getting a couple of tees along the way. Yeah, I don't think Thursday necessarily is a problem. I think the bigger picture in getting under Randle's skin, it's something you got to watch come playoff time.
It's a fine line, right? Because Julius Randle plays with emotion. I mean, that's clear. He feeds off of his emotion on the floor. So you tell him to tone it down. Does that change what he does at his best? I don't know the answer to that. I do think, yes, it's on Tom Thibodeau, but I think it's organizationally up and down, Leon Rose on down. It's on everybody to try to quell Randle in the moments where he's going to get you a technical foul and he's going to hurt you from that perspective, possession and losing points. So I think that's, to me, the focus. And he's been upset at refs. I haven't seen him get upset a lot at the physical contact. But, JJ, I hear what you're saying. If you draw him into contact, the ref doesn't make the call, that could get him going. But, look, I think that he has shown enough this year to where you can believe that he can kind of tone it down when he needs to. But I think there's a fine line there. So I think to some degree, you have to live with the occasional technical, the occasional barking at a ref, the occasional, just losing it, because Julius Randle needs those emotions to thrive on both ends of the floor. Jerry, how do you see it?
Yeah, I think you're making great points. I think JJ made some great points. It's like the blessing and the curse. It's part of probably what makes him great and work so hard. I mean, you could tell how much work he put into his game in the offseason coming off of last year. And I think even emotionally, we really didn't get to this point where we're talking about the text and the ref and the hands up until, I don't know, it's been like a month and a half. And it really is also when the losing streaks happen. It's out of frustration. I worry in the playoffs because you are not going to get guaranteed calls in the playoffs. It's just the way it is. Some nights maybe you will, but most of the time you won't. Yeah, I think it's going to come down to Tibbs. And I don't know, do you pull him if you see it happening just to reset him? Understand when you're having the season he has, and if you really want to be the guy, it's understanding the moment. And if Randle could just understand the moment when he's not getting the calls and he knows what the other team's trying to do, that's going to be his biggest hurdle. But I believe he could do it. I think he's shown this year he can do it. And I don't see Cleveland pushing those, but I do see Philly definitely getting under his skin. I don't worry as much about Cleveland getting under his skin. I don't know if they have those types of guys necessarily.
Just one quick aside there. Julius credited Johnny Bryant, the Knicks associate head coach, with really working with him in the offseason and showing him instances where he wasn't, acting like a great teammate. And, Johnny Bryant, confronted Julius about it or brought it to his attention and said, would you want to play with a teammate like that? And Julius said that kind of stayed with him, just everything about Johnny Bryant's messaging in the offseason. So I'm wondering if Bryant now, because they do have a connection, how can he kind of factor into getting Julius in a good space? I don't think it's a magic. I don't think there's like some kind of spell you have to go with here. It's just human nature for him to get fired up, and there's just that line where you don't want him to go past. So we'll see what happens here. Now, with Jalen Brunson, JJ, you mentioned Brunson's absence. He has I don't know if it's a soft cast, it's a wrap on his hand. They're calling it a sprained hand. It seems like he was close last night to playing because he had practiced fully and he had gone through the full shoot-around. So he's trending in the right direction, but he's going to have to wear that guard on his hand when he gets back out on the floor. It's his non-shooting hand. But, to me, where he goes and how he goes is the bellwether for this Knicks team. The way you guys look at it, JJ, I'll start with you. Is he the most important player in the postseason for the Knicks, or is it somebody else?
100%, because we saw what a Knicks team 2 years ago looks like without Jalen Brunson and with Julius Randle and a cast around them where there was way too much onus and way too much pressure on Julius, and he failed miserably against Atlanta. Look, they need Jalen Brunson to play the way that he did last year for Dallas in the postseason, where, let's be real, you think about the first-round matchup that could be coming up. Jalen Brunson did not have Luka Doncic for a good portion of that first-round series. Jalen Brunson outplayed Donovan Mitchell, and the Dallas Mavericks ended up getting by the Utah Jazz, and they made it all the way to the Western Conference Finals. And I'm worried, guys, about Brunson. Listen, he had the issue on the West Coast trip. Now he's got this soft cast on his hand. He's gotten beat up. We know he's going to play come playoff time. But if you're going to have me entertain the idea of the Knicks winning a playoff series, dare I say, the Knicks pushing Milwaukee, Boston, Philly, whoever in that second round, they can't do it without Jalen Brunson being at his best. So, yeah, he's the most important player on the team. He's the most valuable player on the team. And as you just said, Ian, he goes, they go. Case closed.
Jerry, is Jalen the guy for you most important, or are you looking at somebody else?
No, he is the guy most important, but I'm gonna give a different spin on it. I do think, obviously, yeah, health, he's gonna play. I completely agree, but also because what he does for Randle also is what I think makes Brunson so important. Now, Brunson has those games where he puts up 30 or he puts up 20 in a quarter. We've all seen it, but I do think taking that pressure off Randle unlocks him in a way that we will need him come playoff time. But I'm going to go with a different, I'm going to assume that Brunson and Randle are going to be the 1-2 punch that we've depended on all year. Assuming that, then to me, the guy I'm looking at after that is RJ. Because if you tell me we have 3 guys who could get you 20 points a game out of the starting lineup, I'm assuming the bench is going to do their thing. I know Hart's going to bring the energy. I'm going to assume IQ is going to do his thing. RJ's the guy. RJ's the swing guy to me. If Brunson's healthy, if Randle is calm, they're doing their thing. RJ's the guy I'm looking at as, to push a Boston or a Milwaukee in a second round, or just to get out of the first round. I'm looking at RJ.
Yeah, I want to follow up on that, but we talked a lot about Julius Randle and the Techs and his success this year and everything. I want to say this because this afternoon, Julius Randle is going to be at the Earl Monroe New Renaissance School, specialized high school in the Bronx, and he's going to be making a sizable donation to the high school there to benefit a bunch of the students, and that was a part of his campaign where he donated, I think, $500 for each made 3. It started last year. It's into this year, and it actually inspired another student from the Dalton School to start a campaign of his own, and over in Dalton, they've raised a lot of money based on, I believe the student's name was Aiden Khalid, all of his 3-pointers, they donated money, and it's just going to benefit young students at the Earl Monroe School in a big way. So I just wanted to take a minute to give Julius Randle a lot of credit for his efforts in fundraising and helping out the school there in the Bronx. Now, RJ Barrett, JJ, how do you think that he's fit into this? A lot of people call it the mid-3, but they're top 3 players. How do you think he's fit in? Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, RJ Barrett.
It's weird. It seems like RJ Barrett is more comfortable on the floor when Jalen Brunson is not there because he has more usage. He's able to attack the rim a lot more. And I think the biggest pitfall right now for Barrett, guys, the 3-point shot is hideous. I mean, let's just call it what it is. It has actually gotten worse over the course of this year, to the point where if I'm an opponent and I'm playing the Knicks, I'm daring RJ Barrett to shoot the basketball. Jerry's 100% right. He is the ultimate X factor for them, because if he could get his game to a different level, then all of a sudden you feel different about the ceiling for this team with what Brunson's going to give you, with what Randle's going to give you. But I wonder, guys, he's going to get his minutes. He's obviously going to start these games. If he's not hitting the outside shot consistently, is he playing at the end of these games? I don't think that's a given, because we're talking about Quickley playing, right? We know, assuming no injuries, Randle's going to be on the floor. Brunson's going to be on the floor. You're going to have a big on the floor. So Mitchell Robinson, Hartenstein, probably going to be Mitchell Robinson, all right? You're going to want to have your big there. Josh Hart has played big minutes for this team. Quickley has played big minutes for this team. It's going to be matchup-based, obviously. But Ian, I could be living in a world, right, where we're sitting here middle of April. It's 2-1. The Knicks are playing the Cavaliers in a best-of-7 series, and RJ Barrett is not a part of your closing lineup. I'm not going to be surprised if that's the case.
Yeah, we've seen it in the regular season. Thibodeau goes with matchups. He goes with – it's situational, it seems, those closing lineups, and whether it's RJ Quickley or Quentin Grimes there, Hart's going to be there. But, yeah, Thibodeau's got a decision to make there night in and night out. Jerry, I got one for you here, because I know that, you're a longtime Knick fan, and I went back and counted. I think it's maybe 6 seasons in the last 20 years where the Knicks are playing meaningful games at this point in the year, and that was obviously, we're talking about after the mid 90s, late 90s run with those good Knicks teams, but it hasn't happened often where you're paying attention to the standings and looking ahead to the playoffs here in the last 2 decades. Where would this team stack up for you in terms of the most enjoyable teams that you've watched here at the Garden?
Ian, you're absolutely right, because I usually now is when I'm starting to lock into baseball. I'm a little behind on baseball right now, where I usually am. I'm usually scouting the draft, and I'm usually locking into baseball. Look, I'm going to say something bold, and this is my personal opinion. You could disagree with it. That's fine. For me, as a longtime Knicks fan, I've enjoyed this team more than any other team since the 99-2000 season where they reached the finals. 2013 was great. I loved 2013. It was a wild ride. To me, that team really had one way of beating you. It was going to be Melo's going to, it was MVP year almost for Melo. He's going to get his 30. Amari was in and out of the lineup. You needed J.R. Smith and you needed Novak to hit threes and Tyson Chandler do his thing on defense. I think this team could win in more ways and has shown that. I think defensively, I know Tyson Chandler is the defensive player of the year, but on the perimeter, they have a better defensive team that causes transition turnovers. They have another layer to me. So I've enjoyed this team more than any other team since 99-2000. That might be bold because 2013 was great. We were a 3 seed. It was beautiful. But that's I'm sticking with that.
I'm right there with you on this. And the reason I am, Jerry, is because it feels like the Knicks are building something. Where in 2012, 2013, yes, they were ahead of their time. Yes, Melo was awesome. J.R. Smith was the sixth man, but it was this older, aging team. You could tell that the Melo-Amari dynamic, because Amari's body was breaking down. They weren't a great fit together. You felt like there was a shelf life on what that team could necessarily achieve. I feel like this team's young. They're hungry. They're building towards something. It's going to be the playoffs now, 2 out of the last 3 years, which Knicks haven't been able to say very often over the last 20 years. Let's be honest, fellas. So from an enjoyment standpoint, they're not going to be as good necessarily as that team that was a 2 seed. I don't know if they're going to get out of the first round. I think it's 50-50, 60-40, 40-60, however you want to look at it for a potential first round series against Cleveland. But day in and day out, regular season since December, 100%. I'm totally with you.
Well, just one thing on JJ's take with the Knicks teams. He's a baby, so I don't even know if he was born in 99.
Oh, come on. I'm going to be 35 in May. The grades are coming in from the 90s. Yes, I believe it or not, when you're a child of the 90s and you're a sick lunatic like me, you recite all of those games growing up, from the Knicks Heat games to P.J. Brown and Charlie Ward to LJ's 4-point play. I was a little younger. I wish I was Jerry's age, so I really could have enjoyed those moments that much more. I was at, by the way, the Larry Johnson 4-point play at Madison Square Garden. I was at that game. One of the best games I've ever attended in my life, might I add.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think, Jerry, you might be of the age where you were, carving stuff in your hair because Anthony Mason would carve stuff in his hair. Did you do that? I know our kids growing up with me, they had the 14 in their hair. They had designs because they saw Mason do it.
I definitely did. I mean, all-time favorite team, if that's what we're going to discuss. I mean, it's that 93, 94 run. I did something so stupid like a year ago. I was on a flight, and it was DirecTV was on the flight, and there was no basketball. So maybe it was actually 2 years ago, really. And they were running the Knicks Game 7 versus the Rockets on Hardwood Classics.
Oh, why would you do
and
that
I watched
to
it on the
yourself,
whole
dude?
flight. And I watched it as if I thought the outcome would be different. And when you really watch that game, you watch the last 3 minutes, it was right there. It was right. There was like a loose ball Oakley had and lost out of bounds. I almost teared up on the flight.
I think John Starks just missed another 3.
All right, let's go back to the here and now, fellas. Cleveland, the matchup. I think you look at the teams ahead of the Knicks in the standings, Cleveland is the team you would want most. And I say that just because they haven't been together with Donovan Mitchell in a playoff series. And I think you like the Randle matchup. And so I think there are reasons to like this matchup more than Philly, more than Milwaukee, more than Boston. What do you guys think? How do you think they match up with Cleveland? Jerry, do you like it?
Well, I do like it. That's the matchup I want. I have selfish reasons because I'm actually right now currently in Cleveland. That's where my wife's from. So I will be going to as many home and home games as possible. I do think it's a be careful what you wish for, but I do think that they match up better with Cleveland. Also, let's play this Mitchell thing out. You want to talk about pressure? You want to talk about playoff pressure also? Because Knicks fans have been talking for a year now almost. Should they have gotten Donovan Mitchell? You know what? Let's play this thing out in the first round. See who the early leader in the clubhouse is with the Donovan Mitchell saga. I want the Cavs for sure.
Yeah, it's a great storyline going into that series if it happens. JJU, Cleveland, do you like the matchup?
Compared to Boston, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia, yeah, sure. But Cleveland's good, guys. Like, let's not ignore the fact that, number one, they have a guy who can go get a bucket whenever he wants in Donovan Mitchell. Two, they got size in the likes of Mobley and Jarrett Allen. And you have Darius Garland. I think the reason you like Cleveland, though, is twofold. And I don't like putting too much stock in regular season games and regular season performance because it's a totally different animal in the playoffs. That said, the Knicks have matched up well with Cleveland so far this regular season. And two, you hit on this, Ian. This is not an experienced team. You know, this is not Boston where they're in the NBA Finals last year, or Philly where they've been in the playoffs a bunch, or Milwaukee where Giannis has gone and has won a championship. Like, out of the 4 potential teams you could play, this series, and I'm not saying the Knicks would necessarily win this series, but it gives them the best chance to win of the 4. So if you're asking me right now, the Knicks are in the first round series. They can have one of these 4 teams. Yeah, it's Cleveland. It's not even close.
And as far as the referendum goes, I mean, that's real. Look, I know some fans probably don't want to see it this way, but if the Knicks perform poorly in this series and Donovan Mitchell kind of stomps their hearts out, let's say they lose in 5 games, that's not going to sit well, I think, organizationally, and it's going to take some of the luster away from the way that this team performed in the regular season. And you see it all the time in the NBA, right? What happens in the playoffs, I think, gets magnified in terms of how you think about your offseason. Knicks had trouble with Atlanta having somebody go off the dribble. They needed more shooting. They felt that Evan Fournier that summer was the guy to come in and knock down shots, and he could get you off the dribble a little bit. So that's why part of the reason why they went after Fournier, because they saw the series and they felt like that was an element that was missing. So what happens in the playoffs, I think, factors in fairly significantly to your offseason plans sometimes. So with that being said, guys, let's spin forward to June, July, offseason, draft, trades. Put your Leon Rose hat on for a second, Jerry. Put your Leon Rose suit jacket on for a second, I should say. Who are you targeting this offseason if you're the Knicks?
It's so tough because I have, I come from the camp of, look, of course I know stars win. You got to have a top 10 player. I get all that. I don't know who that next disgruntled NBA superstar is that wants to force their way out. And, because I look at free agency and what's the realistic chances of any of those bigger names leaving. I know, names like Zach LaVine get floated, who's playing awesome right now. I personally, not that I'm not saying I'm not a LaVine guy. I think he fits nice, but I kind of like what we have going here. I just want to make sure we take care of Quickley. I want to really get that Dallas pick right at 11 would be beautiful so we could keep it. And I think you still kind of wait around to see. We have so many assets. We're in such a good position. I don't want to force a move for a name and break up what we have with the young guys because, all right, we finally got, Zach LaVine. I know Bradley Beal's not going anywhere. That was once upon a time. That was a name that was always thrown around. So, when I thought about SGA was always the guy for me, I wish, but he's not going anywhere now. So I don't know. To me, get Quickley signed up, hope that Dallas pick turns into something and just keep building and just wait for the right moment.
You mentioned waiting. 2 guys that are pipe dreams. Let me preface this by saying this. They are total pipe dreams, but you got to think about the NBA. You got to think about the landscape of how things could go, to Ian's point, in the postseason. What if Philadelphia loses in the second round again? And Joel Embiid is like, I've had enough. And I know he always gets hurt. That's always a narrative of his. That's a guy where I'm like, holy smokes, I could get Joel Embiid. He wants to come to the Knicks. Like, I'm salivating over that. The other one that I'm thinking about, now this might be way too early, and it's probably not going to happen because he's in bed with the owner to begin with. Dallas has been a total you-know-what show. I mean, every which way, from the Porzingis trade, which right now is coming up roses for the Knicks. I couldn't have been more wrong on that. I admit when I'm wrong. Porzingis is what he is, and the Knicks, they were able to reset the deck. Randle has played better. It's been an absolute slam dunk for them. They got all these picks coming from the Mavericks. Then you throw in this Irving trade, and Luka is miserable. So there's a relationship there. Could maybe the Jalen Brunson and Luka partnership? I know Jalen Brunson wouldn't like that because Jalen Brunson left Dallas so he could actually have the ball in his hands. But, Ian, you want me to start stargazing right now. Those are two that I'm just like, it's way too early. There's probably a 2% chance of either of these things happening, but I'll be monitoring throughout the course of this summertime, just saying.
It's going to be a fun few weeks, close out the regular season, fun playoffs. Then we'll get to the offseason stuff. But that'll do it for us. Not JJ Redick, John Jastremski, The Ringer, New York podcast. Go check that out. Jerry Ferrara, Power, Entourage. He's got a new project coming out, which I don't want to jump the gun here, but I'm excited to hear about it at some point. So keep an eye out for that. We really appreciate you guys jumping on with us here on the Putback, guys. And we will be back next Tuesday, live 1 p.m. Another edition of the Putback. We'll be talking Knicks. We'll be talking playoff matchups and the rest of it. We're looking forward to seeing you there.